Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take that fire hose of information out there, research papers, guides, all that stuff, and really boil it down for you, the learner.
That's right, giving you the essential insights without the noise.
And our mission today, well, we're unpacking assessment and evaluation. It can seem a bit, confusing sometimes.
It definitely can, but we've got some great sources from higher ed assessment, program evaluation guides like the CDC's, even stuff on evaluation in schools.
Yeah, a really interesting mix. So the goal is to connect the dots, find those practical insights, maybe trigger a few aha moments for you.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting, I think, is how this basic need, figuring out, is this working, shows up everywhere. Colleges, community programs.
It's fundamental, isn't it? We want to know if our efforts are making a difference, and evaluation, assessment, they're the tools for that.
Exactly. They provide a roadmap, surprisingly consistent across different areas.
Okay, so let's start with something that maybe feels a bit technical, data in higher education.
Right. Colleges collect tons of numbers, SAT scores, retention rates, things like that.
But just having a big spreadsheet of scores, that doesn't tell you much, does it? It's like a pile of ingredients.
Precisely. You need the recipe, you need context, and that's where basic statistics come in handy.
Like the average, the mean.
Yeah, the mean gives you that central point, but you have to be careful. A few really high scores can pull it way up.
Ah, right. So that's why they also look at the median, the one right in the middle.
Exactly.
Right.
The median isn't affected by those extreme scores, and then the mode that just tells you the most common score.
So for you, the learner, looking at all three gives a much better sense of the landscape, doesn't it? Are scores clustered or really spread out?
It paints a richer picture. And you also need to know how spread out they are.
That's the range and standard deviation stuff.
Yep. Range is simple highest to lowest. Standard deviation tells you, on average, how far each score is from the mean. Gives you a sense of the variability.
And frequency distributions. That's like plotting out how many students got each score.
Right. It gives you a visual shape. Is it a bell curve? Skewed. Does it have multiple peaks, maybe suggesting different groups within your data?
So even these, like simple descriptions, average retention, minority enrollment percentages, they immediately make you ask questions.
Definitely. Why is this number low? What's going on here? What can we do?
But, and this seems key from the readings, just describing the situation doesn't tell you why it's happening.
Exactly. That descriptive data raises questions, but it can't answer the why. That's a crucial distinction. Correlation isn't causation.
Okay, so if we want to get closer to the why, we need more powerful tools, like regression analysis.
Yes, regression is a step toward understanding relationships. It helps us predict an outcome based on other things we know.
Like the example in the readings predicting GRE scores based on SAT scores.
Exactly. The analysis gives you an expected GRE score for someone with a certain SAT score.
And the interesting part is when the actual score is different from what was expected.
That's where it gets insightful. Those differences, those discrepancies, can point to other factors, environmental factors, as the sources call them, having an impact.
Like the science major is doing better on the quantitative GRE, but maybe not as well on verbal, even considering their SATs.
Precisely. Their college environment seems to be shaping their skills in specific ways. So for you, the learner, think of regression as finding predictable patterns. If X goes up, does Y tend to go up or down?
But it's still prediction, not necessarily proof of cause, right?
Correct. It shows association, often very strong association, but proving cause and effect is another level.
Okay, but it helps you investigate potential causes. And then there's multiple regressions. That sounds like looking at lots of factors at once.
Yes, and that's really powerful, especially for that input environment output model, the IEO model they talk about.
Right, the IEO model.
Yeah.
Tracking the student journey.
Right.
What they bring in, input, what happens at college, environment, and the results, output.
Multiple regression lets you try to isolate the effect of the environment, the college experience itself, while statistically controlling for the inputs, the differences students had when they arrived.
So you're controlling for things like their prior test scores.
Right.
Like the SAT in that GRE example.
Exactly. Or things like gender, if that seems relevant, like in the GRE example too. It helps you rule out pre-existing differences as the sole explanation for the outcomes you see.
That makes sense. The readings had another great example. Predicting student retention, staying in college until graduation.
Yeah, they looked at a whole bunch of freshman characteristics, SATs, high school grades, number of tough courses taken.
And used multiple regression to see which ones were the best predictors of sticking around.
And the results, shown as those beta weights, were pretty clear.
Yeah.
SAT scores and high school grades, really significant predictors, much more so than some other factors.
The takeaway seems to be that academic preparation coming in is hugely important for retention. Those are big levers.
Absolutely. They even showed how, say, a certain increase in SAT score or high school GPA could translate to a specific predicted increase in the likelihood of graduating.
So while other things definitely matter, student expectations, background values, all that stuff.
Their individual predictive power for retention specifically might be more modest compared to academic prep. It's like your house analogy, the foundation matters most.
Okay. And then the focus shifts slightly to student satisfaction, another outcome.
Right. And here, the link between student inputs and the outcome seems a bit different.
How so?
Well, while student characteristics probably relate to satisfaction, it's maybe less likely that the college environment directly causes satisfaction in the same way it might influence, say, test scores.
Because satisfaction is maybe more tied to personality, expectations, individual values.
Plausibly, yes, though the environment certainly plays a role. But the risk of wrongly concluding the college caused the satisfaction level seems lower than with achievement outcomes.
Gotcha. And they noted differences in satisfaction across majors, like communications versus engineering.
Yeah, some fields tended to have higher reported satisfaction. Makes you wonder about the different cultures and experiences within those majors.
Definitely food for thought. Okay, so that's a look at assessment in higher ed,
Yeah.
but evaluation is broader.
Much broader. It's crucial for any organization wanting to improve, and the CDC framework for program evaluation is a really practical guide for that.
The 2024 update, and it sounds flexible, non-prescriptive.
Exactly. It lays out 6 key steps. First, assess the context, understand the situation.
Okay, context first. Then,
Describe the program clearly. What is it actually doing? Then, focus the evaluation. What questions are you trying to answer?
makes sense. Then gather evidence.
Gather credible evidence. Then, generate and support conclusions based on that evidence. And finally, crucially, act on the findings.
Assess, describe, focus, gather, conclude, act. Got it. And there were those cross-cutting themes, too.
Yes, woven through every step. Engage collaboratively with stakeholders, advance equity, and learn from and use the insights. These aren't separate steps. They're principles for how you do the evaluation.
That feels really important. It's not just technical. It's about people, fairness, and actually making things better.
Couldn't agree more. And the framework also clearly separates evaluation from research.
Right. Evaluation is about improving this specific program, informing these decisions. Research aims for broader knowledge.
Evaluation is applied. It's about making a difference right here, right now.
And there are different flavors of evaluation: process, outcome, impact.
Exactly. Process evaluation asks, is the program running as planned, following its theory of change?
Okay, how it's working day to day.
Outcome evaluation asks, are the intended results happening, but it doesn't necessarily prove the program caused them?
And impact evaluation tries to do that, tries to show cause and effect.
Yes, impact evaluation aims to estimate the causal effects, often by comparing what happened with the program to what might have happened without it. More complex, usually.
Okay, so before even choosing a type, you need that deep dive into the context you mentioned.
Absolutely. History, needs, audience, operations, stakeholders, the whole environment, social, economic, political, even power dynamics and existing evaluation capacity.
It's like mapping the entire ecosystem and considering equity and diverse perspectives throughout that.
Crucial. Then comes describing the program and making a logic model.
The logic model, that's the visual map of how the program should work, activities leading to outcomes.
Precisely. It clarifies the theory of change. Developing it collaboratively helps everyone get on the same page about goals, assumptions, and make sure the program is actually ready to be evaluated.
Okay, context understood, program described. Now, focusing the evaluation.
This means defining the purpose. Why are we doing this? Who will use the findings and how?
And developing the key evaluation questions, the big questions guiding the whole thing.
Yes. Broad but answerable. Developed collaboratively, culturally responsive. Then you outline the design.
What kind of design?
Could be observational, just watching and describing, good for questions about how things are implemented, or experimental or quasi-experimental, more rigorous for tackling those causal questions about impact.
And feasibility matters, right? Can you actually do the design well?
Huge factor. A perfect design that's implemented poorly isn't useful. Then you gather that credible evidence.
Deciding what data, how to collect it, surveys, interviews, documents, using existing data or collecting new stuff.
All of that. And using multiple sources adds rigor. Thinking about quantity need to know versus nice to know, and quality is the data reliable, valid, authentic.
And being mindful that people might feel anxious about being evaluated.
Yes, evaluator anxiety is real. Engaging people collaboratively can help build trust and get better information.
So data's gathered, now the analysis.
You need a plan for analysis from the start. Use methods appropriate for your data, quantitative, qualitative, or mixed.
And it might involve cleaning the data, comparing different sources, triangulation, maybe even revisiting your initial metrics.
Often, yes. It's an iterative process sometimes. Then comes generating conclusions.
Interpreting the analyzed data, figuring out what it means, making recommendations.
And again, collaboration is key here. Work with stakeholders to interpret findings and make sure recommendations are practical and actionable.
Which leads straight into the final step.
Yeah.
Act on findings.
Yep. Plan how findings will be used. Prepare them. Tailor the message. Use clear language, visuals. Help turn insights into action.
It's not just about the final report document, is it?
Not always. It's about getting the right info to the right people in a usable format. Ensuring it's timely allows for review. It's about facilitating change.
And what about those worries evaluation costs too much, takes too long?
The sources address that. Cost depends on the questions and precision needed. And it shouldn't be an afterthought. Integrate it early for ongoing feedback.
Okay. Now, shifting focus, again, slightly internal evaluation within an organization like a college.
Right. And there isn't one single definition of the internal evaluator's role.
But common themes emerge, like being an educator, a data coach, information broker.
Exactly. Facilitator, planner, organizational learning consultant. It's a multifaceted role.
And then there's this slightly provocative idea of academic games.
Yes. Strategies academics might use to kind of sidestep assessment findings that imply change is needed.
Like rationalization, using complex arguments to dismiss data.
Or citing lack of resources, unrealistic demands. Then there's the bad is good game.
How does that work?
Reinterpreting negative findings as positive, like high dropout rates mean we have rigorous standards, or poor teaching evaluations mean the course is challenging.
Wow, okay. And the problem of expertise. External experts versus internal folks doing the evaluation.
The argument is that the independent assessor model bringing in outsiders can sometimes backfire.
Why?
It can feel adversarial. Faculty or staff might not trust the findings or feel the experts get their context. They lack ownership.
Whereas a more collegial model, involving people internally, might foster more buy-in.
That's the idea. More collaboration, more shared responsibility, potentially leading to more action on the findings.
Which brings us back to communicating results effectively. It's make or break, isn't it?
Absolutely critical. Tailoring the message to the audience, faculty, administrators, students, policymakers, they all have different interests.
And interestingly, the advice isn't always dumb it down. Sometimes, especially for faculty, you need to provide enough detail.
Right, so they can own the findings, see the methodology, and not feel patronized. The idea of multiple levels of reporting makes sense.
Like an executive summary, a main report, and detailed appendices, catering to different needs.
Exactly. And there was also a point about choosing assessment instruments, the temptation to use standardized tests.
Yeah, off-the-shelf ones. But faculty might not buy into them unless the test has huge credibility, like the SAT or GRE, or it's very specialized.
Correct. For general education outcomes, locally developed instruments tailored to the institution's goals often have more credibility with the people doing the teaching.
And a caution about overusing multiple choice tests. They have limits and hidden costs.
Definitely. They can't assess everything we care about in higher ed, and good ones are hard to write.
Okay, so to make all this assessment work sustainable, you need good data infrastructure, a database.
Critically important. And it's not just a tech issue. It needs leadership buy-in. It should integrate input, environment, and outcome data.
And structured logically, like cohort files for groups of students starting together.
Ideally, yes. Maybe separate files if student groups have really different paths, like transfer versus first-time freshmen. The key is consistency within a student's record so you can track them over time.
Makes sense. Now, touching on a few specific tools mentioned. NSSE, National Survey of Student Engagement.
Right. Focuses on student behaviors linked to learning engagement. But a limitation is that engagement is also influenced by student characteristics they bring in.
So it's hard to isolate the institution's impact just from NSSE alone.
It can be challenging. That's why they added the Beginning College Survey, BCSSE, to get that input data up front.
And the CLA, collegiate learning assessment.
That one tries to measure value-added gains in thinking skills, critical thinking, writing using direct assessments like essays.
So not self-report, but actual performance tasks.
Yeah.
But it doesn't capture the environment data.
Correct. It focuses on the outcome measure.
Okay. And the concept of fidelity, how closely a program is delivered as intended.
Yes. It's complex, multi-level. The key is to measure aspects of fidelity that actually matter for outcomes, not just the easy-to-track stuff. And fidelity can vary.
Got it. And the SMART framework for metrics. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound.
A classic for a reason. Turns vague goals like improve reading into something concrete, like increase reading scores by 10% on X test by year 2. Much more useful for evaluation.
And again, the emphasis on combining data methods, checking validity, reliability, cultural considerations.
And refining the data through analysis, triangulation, maybe revisiting metrics, it all leads to better, more actionable insights. And clear communication of recommendations tailored to the audience.
This theme of collaboration keeps coming up. The model for collaborative evaluations in education.
Especially important as systems get bigger. Involving stakeholders is key. Evaluators need to provide user-friendly assessments, maybe multiple reports, and work with users before and after.
Getting them involved right from the start in shaping the evaluation questions.
Hugely beneficial. Ensures relevance, addresses real information needs, questions assumptions, builds consensus. There are strategies for identifying and engaging stakeholders, even managing tensions.
And the evaluation questions themselves should form a logical set, complete enough to meet the purpose, but maybe not exhaustive.
Right. With a rationale for what's included or excluded. And distinguishing between answerable and unanswerable questions is important too.
Evaluation provides information to improve, but also to communicate, right? Like reporting back to funders.
Yes, accountability is often part of it. And we see the distinction between formative evaluation for ongoing improvement and summative evaluation looking at the overall impact later.
Plus implementation and evaluation checking fidelity and performance indicators for tracking progress.
And developing those evaluation questions often builds on a conceptual model, involves stakeholders, and requires defining measurable outcomes and criteria for success.
That criteria part sounds tricky. What counts as success? Statistical significance, a certain size of effect, compared to what baseline?
Those are critical discussions to have upfront. And often, a mixed methods approach combining quantitative and qualitative data gives the richest understanding.
The choice depends on the questions, time, skills, what stakeholders find credible.
And collecting data at multiple points in time usually makes for a stronger evaluation.
Then the practicalities. Getting approvals, thinking about the people you're collecting data from, training collectors well.
Minimizing bias, maximizing response rates, minimizing disruption, all important details.
And the final report typically needs structure. Intro, background, questions, methods, findings, conclusions, recommendations.
Summary, appendices, but always tailored, clear, compelling communication. Dissemination needs planning from the start, too.
And one last crucial point.
Yeah.
Culturally responsive evaluation.
Yes. The idea that evaluation can or should be culture-free is misguided.
Oh.
You have to consider the culture of the participants, frame questions that resonate, be mindful during data collection.
Like interpreting nonverbal cues differently across cultures, the findings need to be seen as truthful and relevant by the intended audience.
Exactly. It's about validity and utility within a specific cultural context.
Just quickly, those examples mentioned. The airplane activity.
Yeah, a simulation showing how getting immediate feedback on process measures helped teams improve way faster than just waiting for the final outcome, highlights the value of timely data.
And the Pierce County program evaluation.
An example of reporting lessons learned from both process stuff, how it ran, and outcome stuff, what results it achieved. Sharing the whole story.
Okay, so pulling it all together. Assessment, evaluation. It's definitely not just about collecting numbers, is it?
Not at all. It's really a thoughtful, systematic process. It demands careful planning, real engagement with people, using the right methods, analyzing information critically.
And then communicating effectively to drive actual change. It seems to be about getting behind the what to understand the why and the how.
Precisely. Considering different viewpoints, focusing on insights you can actually use to make things better, whether that's student learning or a community health initiative.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, the learner. How can you apply these ideas, this kind of deep, thoughtful assessment in your own world?
Yeah, whether it's your own learning process, projects you're involved in, or your work, how can you dig deeper to gain a more nuanced understanding of what's really going on and how improvements can be made.
Something to think about. We definitely encourage you to maybe look closer at some of the specific tools and frameworks we touched on today.
See how they might spark new insights or approaches for you.